All right, hello and welcome to this training. As you can see from the title, what we're going to be covering today is the price of becoming serious. And as you can see from the overview, what we're going to be talking about more specifically is first the overview itself, the need to leave, the weight of sacrifice, the return to life, the review, your action items for the day or the next few days. And with that said, if you want to work with me one-on-one, make sure to book a call from the link in the description. If you want this document along with this training, make sure to join the free community from the link in the description. And if you want weekly newsletters helping you improve every aspect of your life, then make sure to join the free newsletter from the link in the description. With that said, let's get started and talk about the need to leave. So there are seasons in your life where a normal life will keep you normal, plain and simple. Meaning, if you keep doing the same things you've always done, you'll keep getting the same results, and that's just how it goes. Your normal life has a real pull on you, and if you keep giving it your mornings, your nights, your attention, and your little private excuses, you'll keep showing up as the same person you said you were done being. And that pull looks like reaching for your phone before your feet even hit the floor in the morning, or the yes to going out in the evening when you already know you need to go to the gym the next day in the morning, or eating clean until 8 at night and then blowing the whole day in the kitchen. Each one of these is small enough to defend, which is exactly why people keep defending it. But those small things get serious once they repeat. Your body starts expecting comfort before effort, and after a while, the work feels heavier than it needs to. And you've essentially trained yourself to be interrupted, soothed, and answered way too quickly. So you'll feel the cost as irritation with yourself. You'll say you want a different life, and then watch another day prove the same old thing all over again. It's a rough feeling, but it's a useful one if you sit with it instead of running away from it. And it points you straight to where the lie is. So here's the thing, you need a season where you leave some things alone for a while, meaning just as many distractions as possible need to be cut off. And nobody's asking you to vanish forever or turn into some cold person who hates their life, but rather you make your life intentionally simpler for a small stretch of time so that your main goal can finally get enough of you and your attention to actually matter. And you keep the things that make you stable, like sleep, obviously, training, work, and a handful of real relationships that make you more honest, and maybe prayer or reflection if that's your thing. Everything that keeps you well stays exactly where it is, and the cutting starts where the scatter begins. So what goes is the extra stuff you already know is costing you. Late nights, cheap pleasure, random availability, the need to explain your plan to people who won't live with the consequence if you waste another year. And the annoying part is that, yes, the old life won't always look bad. Some of it will look normal. Some of it will look friendly, even healthy from the outside. And that's exactly where you trick yourself if you're not paying attention. You'll tell yourself you're being reasonable, and a lot of the time you're really just leaving room for the old patterns to just come back. Balance is good in the right season. I'm not knocking balance, but in a building season, balance can turn into the word you hide behind when you're scared to go all in. And going out might be fine later, right? And the same goes for dating and the extra social time. Right now, the question's simpler than that. It is the thing pulling the energy away from the main thing that you need to be doing, from the one goal you said matters most to you right now? And that question gets uncomfortable if you answer it honestly, because you'll notice a lot of what you're holding on to is simply expensive for the season you're in. Once the price is actually visible, the decision to set something down for a while gets much easier to make. And so once you see the cost, the choice becomes pretty simple. You decide what gets access to you before the day starts making its demands. Your first hour, your last hour, and the best part of your mind get chosen in advance, and whatever was draining that loses its claim. And so your mornings probably got to get boring for a while. You need to wake up, leave the phone alone, sit with the goal, and get the first real piece of work done. It's not fancy, but there's less room for the day to run you before you've chosen who you're going to be. And your evening needs to have that same respect, because a lot of people lose tomorrow at 11 tonight. They stay up too late, they scroll too long, they answer things that could have waited, then they act surprised when the next morning feels heavier. Look, once you've made the choice, life gets simpler. Simple still costs effort, but at least the effort finally gets one direction. You protect the few things that strengthen you and repeat them until the discipline stops feeling like some big event. It's just how you are every day. And from the outside, it might look like kind of plain. It might look boring to people outside of yourself, right? Fewer plans, less explaining, and a lot more alone time with work that nobody sees yet. And that's fine. A lot of real becoming looks unimpressive while it's still happening. And this is where you meet the actual material, the body that wants comfort, the page that you keep avoiding, the training session that you don't feel like doing, and underneath all of it, that hour of work where nothing dramatic happens except you don't leave. So the first proof won't always show up on the outside. It's the fact that you kept the day. You said you'd do something and you actually did it without needing some big feeling to carry you there. And the smaller life starts to feel weird at first too, right? Because it's a lot simpler. It's a lot less stimulating. And so less input can feel like emptiness when you're used to being stimulated constantly. But after a bit, you'll start seeing what was actually running you. And you'll see that cravings show up, and you'll see what cravings show up and when. And so certain people will turn out to pull you out of yourself, and that will get very obvious very quickly. And what you reach for when your work becomes a bit more difficult, and when you feel lonely, and when nobody's checking, will tell you the rest. So seeing that will hand you back some control. It's not going to be perfect. You're still human and you'll still have off days, but you'll stop pretending the problem's some mystery when the same few things have been basically sitting there in plain sight for months. So with that said, let's actually cover the weight of sacrifice. So here's the concept underneath everything I just said, and it comes straight out of chemistry. There's a thing called activation energy, and before two elements can actually combine into something new, there's a specific amount of energy that has to get crossed first, right? And the key word here is crossed, right? You can add small amounts of energy slowly, patiently over a long stretch of time, and nothing will happen. The reaction only cares whether you've hit that threshold, whether you've crossed that line. If you sit below that line, all the patient effort dissipates as if it never happened. And the moment you cross it, the whole thing fires at once. So you need to think about it like lighting a fire. You can hold a match near a piece of wood for a long amount of time and still get absolutely nothing. Why? Well, the wood isn't gradually getting more ready the longer you wait, because there's a specific temperature it needs to reach before it actually catches. And until it gets there, nothing's happening no matter how patient you are. So time spent trying was never the variable that mattered. Concentration is what crosses that line, a burst of heat, focused and sustained, aimed right at the thing that needs to change. So personal change works the exact same way. Most people treat it like a slow accumulation problem, figuring that a bit more consistency, a bit more discipline spread across a few areas will eventually stack up and show results on its own. And sometimes that's true. Other times, nothing changes because the efforts spread across too many things to ever concentrate into something that actually crosses the line. So think about how your energy actually moves through a normal day. The goal gets some of it. So do the late nights. So does the phone first thing in the morning, and a dozen other small pleasures. Every one of those things pulls from the same limited supply. And that supply keeps getting divided up. So no single area ever really builds up enough to matter. Life stays roughly the same. And you can see this clearly in someone who's been trying to change for a long time. They've had the realizations, they've read the books, they've set the goals, they've watched the videos, they've started the routines. And 2 years in, they're still more or less the same person. Their life is still more or less the same. The total energy pointed at the goal never built up enough to cross the line, and every step forward had something pulling the supply back. So the leaks are rarely obvious, honestly. Most of the time they're very hidden, which is what makes them easy to ignore. 15 small things that drain the supply, each with a reasonable excuse, each looking harmless on its own, but together they keep you permanently under the line. So close enough to feel like progress while the reaction never actually fires, while you never actually cross the threshold. So you stay divided. One part of you keeps reaching towards who you want to be, while another part still feeds the old version. So removal is what closes that gap. You take enough off the table that the energy finally has somewhere to build until something actually changes. And the real question is how you seal the leaks and point enough of the supply at the one thing that actually needs to change. A new habit or a better morning routine won't get that done on its own. What does it is a season, a deliberate contained stretch where you cut back what your energy is pointing towards so that the concentration can finally build and the reaction can actually fire. I call it the hermit season. And it's a joke to a degree, but not really. So it's a set period where you gather what's been spread across everything that wants a piece of you and point it at the one thing that needs it most, just long enough to cross the threshold and let the reaction begin. And that's really what it comes down to, sacrifice, right? Plain, unglamorous, repeated removal of the things keeping you under that line. Most people hear the word and picture punishment. Really, it's a lot simpler than that. It's just the toll that you have to pay to cross the line. And once you pay it, the energy finally gets to build. And that's what produces the change that consistency alone never really gets you. So the desire doesn't disappear, by the way. It will ask for the food, the phone, the night out, the little escape. A serious season just teaches you that the desire can speak without getting obeyed, which is a humongous difference. Most people just obey every desire they have. And that gap between the urge and the action, that's where a lot of the real work begins. So your body will probably complain when the old comfort gets cut, right? That's fine. It just means it's been answered too fast for too long and now it's adjusting to a different order. The complaining usually lasts a week or two and then it starts to quiet down as the new rhythm settles in. And your mind will try to bargain too. It will find very reasonable arguments for why this one time doesn't count, why you deserve a break, why the rule can bend today. You can hear the argument out, let it finish talking, and then do the thing anyway. So every time you do that, you get a bit stronger in a very practical way because the gap between the urge and the action starts to widen. And that gap is really where your real choices live because you went from getting an urge to immediately satisfying that urge, regardless of how short term it is. And now you're actually creating space between the urge and actually you satisfying the urge if you satisfy it at all. So you might not see it in the mirror or the bank account right away, but you'll feel certain things that used to own you start to feel optional now. And so the physical world pays you a lot later. That's just how it works. You can eat clean, train, work deeply, cut the obvious leaks for weeks before you actually see the result you were hoping for. And that delay is exactly where most people quit. And still, you're entitled to the work towards a goal. You're not entitled to the outcome. So at the end of the day, you might not even get the outcome in this specific season, but you're not entitled to the outcome anyway. You're just entitled to the work. And so most people quit in that stretch where they're doing all the things that they need to be doing, and yet they don't see results still. And they do the right thing for a bit, they look around, they see nothing dramatic has really changed in their lives, and they decide it's not working. However, something is working, right? You're building the ability to hold a standard without needing instant proof. And basically, you're training your mind for delayed gratification. And that skill is what every later result gets built on. And here's the part that I think most people skip too fast. The inner change happens before the outer change happens, right? Before the outer evidence shows up. You can sacrifice something today and see nothing happen today. No money, no transformation, no sign from the outside that anything changed. And yet something did, right? What changed is small, but real. You kept one promise and broke one loop. A craving rose, you watched it, and you let it pass without it becoming the next action. Nobody sees that, right? Only you know about that. It's private. But if you repeat it enough, your relationship with yourself will genuinely change. You'll start trusting yourself in a way that's hard to fake through affirmations or just mindset content, right? It's the kind of trust that comes from watching yourself do the boring, difficult, useful thing when there's no reward in the room and nobody's really tracking you. And self-respect works the same way. Meeting a standard when the old comfort was right there, available, with nobody around to catch the slip, builds it in a way that talking about standards won't. And so at some point, this gets almost spiritual. You're giving up something real before the higher thing has fully shown up. The old pattern gets cut while the new one still feels unstable. And in a way, you're making an offering to a future version of you before that version's arrived to confirm it was worth it. And that takes a kind of patience most people never train. And it's the active kind of patience where you keep doing the work, you keep protecting the day. We're not talking about passive patience. You keep doing the work, you keep protecting the day, you keep saying no to the obvious leaks, and you let the time handle what effort alone can't. So the physical result comes eventually, usually later than you'd like. And once it starts, it tends to move very, very quickly. And the proof shows up in pieces, right? You'll sit longer with discomfort than you used to, and you'll recover faster when you basically relapse or slip. And all of that is real, and it compounds week over week. And so there's a real cost here as well. Some things won't get as much of you during this season. You'll miss some things. You'll feel lonely at times, and you'll watch people around you doing the exact things you're currently saying no to. And some part of you will feel the weight of that gap. And that loneliness doesn't need to turn into a whole story, right? You don't have to make it bigger than it is. It's mostly just the sound of your life getting quieter. And the old distractions are now gone. The new self hasn't fully shown up yet. And so there's a stretch in between that can feel a bit empty. But that stretch is simply the space the new thing needs to grow into. So you still need to take care of yourself inside that space, though. Serious season isn't, as I said earlier, it's not punishment. It's not self-punishment. You still need sleep. You still need movement. You still need some human connection and enough honest reflection to stay clear. The stable things stay in place the entire season. What goes is the familiar stuff that was keeping you weaker than you should be. And so if the cuts are making you brittle, anxious, or so isolated that you're starting to spiral, then something's off with the plan. The whole point of the season is to make you more capable. So if you're cutting stuff that is eroding basic functioning, then you've drifted away from the purpose of the season. Adjust what you're cutting and leave the standard itself alone. So the version of sacrifice that actually works is almost boring. No dramatic announcements, no public declarations, no performance of seriousness. You just know what has to go, you let it go, and you get back to the work. And there's a pull to tell people, to announce the season, to explain the changes, to tell people you're in this mode, in this hermit season, to get some recognition and approval and validation for your commitment. Don't do that. That's the same part of you that wants approval, and if you feed it now, it will eventually be the thing that breaks the season. To whoever genuinely needs to know, let the rest show up in the results. Tell whoever genuinely needs to know, and let the rest show up in the results. Now, discipline compounds when you keep making the same choice without any fans, right? Wake up, you train, you do the work, you protect the night, and you review the week. You point a plain life hard in one direction for long enough, and it will surprise you with what it produces. So with that said, let's actually cover the return to life, what happens afterwards. So this kind of season isn't necessarily meant to last forever, right? You pull back so you can come back with more to give. And when you return, you'll be less easily moved. You'll be less hungry for approval from people who weren't there while you were doing the work, and more capable of holding on to the thing that you said you wanted. The season needs a target though, right? If you're just being serious with no actual clear target or goal, it can turn into avoidance. So you need to get specific about what the season is actually for. So what helps with that is having a rough timeline as well. So 30 days to clean up the inputs and restore some basic order, 90 days to build real work capacity, a year if the goal is big enough to need that kind of runway. The length doesn't really have to be perfect or humongous, but the season needs some kind of a shape, it will fade back into normal life without you ever noticing. And you can set the dates from this date to this date. And you'll want to track a few things during this phase. It's just enough data that you stop being able to lie to yourself about how it's actually going. So you need to track sleep. And I think you need to track this first, since everything else degrades once your sleep is off. So a simple note of when you went down to sleep and when you got up is enough to catch any drift before it costs you a week. Another thing is whether you showed up to the gym or not. or if you found a reason not to, right? The record matters more than the quality of any single session, and a visible streak makes the next excuse harder to believe. The next one is whether you showed up to the gym or you found an excuse not to. It's simple, yes or no. Then what you eat should be tracked as well. And what you eat decides how much energy the goal actually gets. So write down the meals that went off plan and what was happening right before them, and then a pattern will show up within a couple of weeks. Another one is real hours spent on the thing that actually matters, but count only the time where the work was actually moving, right? And you'll actually be surprised at how few of those hours a busy day really contains. The next one is how much of that work was genuinely concentrated versus distracted and half present. So I've always said that an hour of focused work will always outperform 6 hours of distracted work. If not by quantity of work, then by quality for sure. And so tracking the difference will show you what your real capacity looks like right now. And the next one and final one is what you reached for when your work started getting a bit more difficult or boring or hard, since that will tell you basically where your distractions are. It will tell you where your mind wanders to anytime it feels bored or finds the work hard. And so note the time of the day and the trigger, and then the same 2 or 3 culprits will most likely keep showing up. Now, once the season's done its work, pleasure gets to come back in, and you'll relate to it differently from a more grounded place. And you might not even see the same things as pleasure anymore. A meal can just be a meal again. A night out can be just a night out. You'll be the one doing the choosing this time, and you'll feel the difference almost immediately. And so the same thing can be fine in one season and genuinely expensive in another. Going out, dating, spending loosely, none of it is evil on its own by itself. It comes down to what season you're in, how often it repeats, and whether it's pulling you from the thing you said was your actual priority right now. So you need to bring things back slowly, and only the ones that actually serve the life you're trying to build, right? Some things were cut for a season, and once you've been away from them for a while, you'll see exactly what they were costing you, and you don't want them back anymore. And you won't need to tell anyone you changed. You'll have lived through a stretch where the day matched what you said, and that does something that, it does something to your relationship with yourself that you don't necessarily have to express at all. You'll just know. At first, it will feel more like evidence than confidence. You know that you can hold a standard for yourself when it's inconvenient, and you already have. And you'll notice more follow through. Hard tasks will hold you longer before you find a reason to leave them. And more of what you start will actually get finished. So the work won't need to feel good anymore before it actually gets your full attention. And you'll catch the old excuses while they're still forming. The distractions will get more visible, faster, and you'll need less emotional buildup before you actually do the thing. And some people will notice and respect it. Others will feel uncomfortable with it and try to pull you back towards the version of you they actually understood. Others will not notice anything at all. You don't need to manage any of those directions or reactions, right? Less access is usually enough. Less explaining, less willingness to play the old role just to keep things comfortable and to keep the boat from rocking. You don't need to tell anyone anything about it. You just stop, and the relationship finds its new level on its own. After a while, you'll also gravitate towards people who make you better and more honest. The ones who actually help you squander your life while calling it fun will stand out sharply once you've got. And the ones that help you squander your life while calling it fun will stand out very clearly once you've got some distance from it. And the space between you and them will grow on its own. So don't overcomplicate the beginning. Don't wait for perfect conditions or a full plan. Pick the goal, pick the length, name the 3 things you're cutting and 3 things you're protecting, write them down, and then just start living it, start taking action on it. That's basically what a hermit season is. Keep it simple enough to actually do. 1 main goal, 3 cuts, 3 protected things, and 1 weekly review where you actually look at the week straight and make 1 or 2 adjustments. That's it. You don't need any more structure than that to start. And make the cuts specific, you won't actually make them. So social media as a cut means absolutely nothing. So write down no phone in the first hour, or the specific social media platforms you're uninstalling from your phone. The same goes for eating better, which becomes no food outside of the plan. right? And going to bed earlier, which becomes lights out by 10:30, unless something's genuinely wrong. So the things you want to protect need that same specificity. A sleep window sitting on the calendar, a training slot you've already blocked off, a work session with the phone in another room. You just make each one concrete enough that you can tell clearly whether you kept it or not. And by the way, if you want support doing this kind of work, rebuilding your life from the inside out, that's what I do with people. So we'll look at where you are, where you want to be, what's standing in the way, and we'll build a step-by-step plan to get there together. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, book a call from the link in the description. Now, the first few days will probably feel off, right? You're removing things that have been shaping your state for a long time, and your mind and your body won't cooperate right away. And so you need to let it be uncomfortable. You need to keep the day simple enough to repeat and serious enough to matter, and just see what happens after 2 weeks of actually living this. And after that, you just keep going. You keep the cuts, you protect the structure, you review the week every week, and you let the season do what it's there to do, which is to keep the main thing, to keep you focused in one direction. Now, with that said, let's cover the review. We talked about the overview, we covered the need to leave, the weight of sacrifice, the return to life, the review, and finally, your action items for the day or the next few days. First, pick the length of your season and name the one goal it exists to serve. Then remove 3 things that have been crushing your discipline, attention, or self-respect. And finally, build the day around sleep, training, focused work, and 1 weekly review. With that said, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. If you want to work with me one-on-one, make sure to book a call from the link in the description. If you want this document, make sure to join the free community from the link in the description. And if you want weekly newsletters helping you improve every aspect of your life, then make sure to join the free newsletter from the link in the description. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.